something. Hello and welcome. I need to turn up my... I can't hear myself in my headphones. There we go. That's much better. Hello and welcome to the Adventure Party on this, the 18th of March, 2018. I'm your party leader, Brad Ludwig. We ask that you peace tie your swords, holster your blasters, and have your con credentials ready before you are gathered at the meeting table. This particular meeting of the Adventure Party is brought to you by some of our Patreon partners, Brian Jensen, Amy Cantwell, Amy Frost, Growly Bear, Jackie Hearn, and JF Dubois. We'll tell you more about how you can become a partner with the Galactic Netcast Network a little later on. Now, what are we here to talk about? I kind of teased it there for just a brief second, talking about con credentials. Glenn, because you work for a game store, you have the opportunity to go to a few cons throughout the year for business, and you went to Toy Fair.
Yeah.
A little bird told me. And we're going to chit-chat a little bit about what you saw and what things that you saw that were coming up that seem kind of exciting to you. So we're going to talk about that. As I said, you manage a game store in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And you also review movies with your B-Movie Bunker YouTube show. And you created a RPG Mistrunner. And I saw that you're working on some rule changes and character creation changes for Demon Eater, your prequel to Mistrunner. How you doing?
Busy.
Moving a store, starting a game-themed bar. Yeah, there's a lot going on in your life right now.
A little bit.
And, well, that keeps you out of trouble, keeps you off the streets. I know that's always been an...
We'll go with that.
That's always been an issue for you, you rabble-rouser. I just like the word rabble-rouser. All right, hey, you always start us off with a review, and today is no different. You're going to review a good-looking game from Games Workshop here. What do you have?
What do I have? Whoops. I have a mess. I just tipped over the soda.
Whoops.
Try that again. I have Warhammer Underworld's Shadespire. So this is two to four players. Actually, it's really 2 players. If you want to play with more than 2, you need multiple starter sets. So it's a 2-player game just out of the box. And what it is a tactical arena combat game. It is designed for small-scale tactical games that play quickly. And what it is you have 2 boards that you can put together to form your arena. You then have some objective markers you will put on the board, and then each player has a war band, generally numbering between 3 and 7 models. Each model will have specific stats, how fast they move, how well they attack and defend, any special abilities. And then you have 2 decks of cards as well. You have your objective deck, which will be the ways you score glory. Glory is how you win the game. Most glory wins. And that might be simply holding objective markers on the board. It might be at the end of the game, if you have wiped out your opponent, you'll get glory. So it's all these different objectives you can score during the course of the game. You also have your ploy deck, your tactic deck. Your tactic deck, which is 2 different types of cards. There are ploys, which are things that you play basically between action. These will be things like, on your next attack, you get to roll an extra die, or sidestep, move 1 model 1 space, stuff like that. Or you have upgrades that you actually spend glory that you've earned to upgrade your different models. So you might give them, this guy has 1 more wound, or there are some that are specific, like this guy gets this special weapon attack. When he attacks people, he damages anyone next to that person that he hits. The game plays really quick. I mean, like 30, 45 minutes. 45 minutes is a long game, I think, from what I've played so far.
Oh.
Yeah, and I haven't played a lot as far as customizing decks, because you can actually customize your decks as well. So each warband gets their own deck, but then there's different cards you can use to customize your deck. So if you want to focus more on just holding objectives, or if you want to focus more on killing your opponent, you can have those specific objectives. If you want to have a lot of upgrades, you can feed your deck with upgrades, of course, knowing that you need to have glory to pay for those. And then if the thing is, as well, glory is your points. It's also what you use to pay for your upgrades. But when you pay glory for an upgrade, those points don't go away. You still have them. You just can't use them again for more upgrades. So it's kind of a nifty thing, is that you do things, you get glory, and you also get glory if you kill any opponent models. And then how combat works, it's all, for the most part, it's with dice. I'm going to roll my attack dice. You'll roll your defense. If I get more hits on my attack dice than you get defense on your defense die, I hit you. I do whatever my base damage is, plus any modifiers that I might have from various cards I played or any upgrades I have. If I do your wounds and damage to you, you die. That's simple. There's also, your models can become inspired, meaning you flip their cards over and they become a bit better. First, depending on the faction you're running, there's different ways you get inspired. The Blood Reavers I was running today, they become inspired if there are 3 or more models out of play. Basically, if 3 or more models have been killed. Not just them, just 3 models total between you and your opponent.
Oh, wow.
You get to inspire all your remaining Blood Reavers. The Stormcast Eternals, which I also played today, they become inspired when they defend. If they roll a shield or a crit hit on a defense roll, they become inspired. But that's per model, so you have to do that each time. When they get attacked, they have a chance to become inspired. And again, when you become inspired, you become a little bit better. You might do more damage. You might have a better attack. You might get, like one of the Stormcast Eternals, when he becomes inspired, he gets a counter attack. So if you attack him and you fail, he gets to smack you in your face.
Oh,
With his big old hammer. So, yeah, like I said, the game is fast. It is super brutal. It is not uncommon at all for someone to lose a model or even 2 on the first turn.
ouch.
Yeah. And the game only plays 3 turns. So, like I said, it plays quick. Now, the key thing is that each player, you're going to get 4 basically activations or actions on your turn, during an entire turn. I'm going to take an action. You're going to take an action. We go back and forth like this 4 times. And then actions are things like I can move. That's an action. You can only move once per model during a round or turn, if you want to call it. You may attack. You can attack anyone within your range. And you could have the same guy attack 4 times in a row if there's someone in his range. You just attack, and your next activation, you can have the same guy attack as long as he hasn't moved. As long as you have the actions, you can keep attacking with the same model, as long as he's still alive and has someone to attack. You can charge, meaning you move and then attack someone. But if you do that, you can't do any more actions with that model. He can't move again. He can't attack again. You can draw more action cards into your hand, or you can discard objective cards to draw new ones, or you can go defensive, basically meaning that normally when you have defense dice, you either on the die you'll either succeed if you roll a shield or if you roll a dodge. And if you go defensive, you block attacks on either a shield or a dodge. You get to use both. Most people do not. And there's ways around that too. There's some weapons that do what's called cleave. If you have a weapon that does cleave damage, it ignores shields, so shields can't save you. Every time you hit someone, they get pushed back if you successfully hit them. So it's a lot of fun, and it plays really quick, and it's a lot of customization, and it's not that much to get into it. The starter set, which comes with 2 warbands, the board, all of the tokens and stuff that you need, your objective markers, your wounds, and all that stuff. Everything you need to play the game is $60.
Huh.
Additional warbands are $30, which will give you, the models any cards that they need, their own decks. So it's a great game. It's a great game if you aren't sure if you like minis games and you want to give something a try. This is a great way to. It's kind of like a gateway to minis, because it's more contained because you are playing on a board. It's all hex based. You don't have to measure anything other than counting hexes.
Yeah.
Because for some people that can throw people off because having to measure stuff and I don't know how this all works and what am I doing. And this way, it's all self-contained on this board, so it just is a great introduction to miniature tabletop wargaming.
Nice.
Yeah.
So $60 for the core, $30 if you want to add more armies.
Yep.
Huh.
Games Workshop has hit on something really cool here.
Very nice.
I thought so.
When I think Warhammer, I think, ungodly expensive armies and hours and hours of painting miniatures and, having to have a measuring tape.
Yeah.
And
these models are all basically snap-togethers.
Yeah.
So you have to assemble them, but they're snapped. You don't need any glue. They look great. Games Workshop in general has been doing a lot to change their image.
Okay.
They're still by no means a perfect company, but they have Age of Sigmar, which is their basically their replacement for Warhammer Fantasy. Has a much lower entry point. You can get like a full starter army for $85.
Holy cow!
So I mean, and this isn't big. I just got the. I always say it wrong. The Kerhadron or whatever it is. They're basically steampunk dwarves. That's 10 models. I mean, one of them is a big steampunk Zeppelin thing.
Oh wow!
But other starter armies have 20 or so models that get you started on playing. You can get a starter for that with 2 small armies of Stormcast Eternals, and I believe it's Chaos or Khorne. I forget what it is, but evil dudes for $80 gets you a full starter ready to play. They even have mini starters that are my little 3-man squad versus your little 4-man squad with intro rules for $30.
Oh wow!
And you can start playing. Yeah. And it's really revamped a lot of the rules from Warhammer Fantasy, where you can now play small scale. You don't have to have giant armies all the time. You can play with just I'm going to play with just these six models, and it's a lot more of they've gotten rid of a lot of the unit requirements where it used to be you can only have this many of cavalry units and only this many of infantry and only this much of support, and they just said nope. You know what? Just play with whatever models you want, and we'll just go with that. So it's gotten a lot more new player friendly, I would say, because you don't have to invest a ton of money. And they're doing a bit of the same thing with the 40K as well, where you can get these really affordable starting armies and this $30 starter set to just give the game a try. And I think it's going to do a lot to really help what I think they've been suffering a bit because of the fact that they like you said, it's if I want to play 40K, I have to spend $800 just to get an army. And now you don't need to. I'm not saying you can't spend that much. You certainly could. And it's not hard to do that, but you don't have to do that to start now. And it's I think gonna have a huge effect on how all of this stuff works because it makes it so much more accessible to people.
Sure. No, that's great. It's nice to see them, I think, finally listen to people. I wonder if they just kind of reached a point where they heard all the griping and grumbling, and then eventually maybe things tapered off a little bit and they realized they needed to make a change. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, their sales had been going down because they have a lot more competition now.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because there are, and a lot of people have gone the way of the skirmish game where they're like, you know what, I don't want to play a 5-hour minis game. I want to play a 1 or 2 hour minis game. So those people have moved over to like Malifaux and Wild West Exodus and stuff like that, where one, the cost of entry is lower because it's like I can get a full army, a full crew for this game for, 60, 70, $80, and I'm all ready to play. Still have to assemble them and paint them and whatever, but I'm ready to play with just that investment. As opposed to, the old 40K way where it's I need to buy 78 units and I need to have all this other stuff that I have to be able to do, and then I have to assemble, which their stuff is, a lot of these aren't easy to assemble, but their stuff is, when you get into the 40K and the Age of Sigmar stuff, there's a lot going on there for assembly. Those sprues are pretty packed full of pieces.
Sure.
But yeah, they've made great strides.
That's good to hear. That's very good to hear. All right. Thank you, Glenn.
Absolutely.
Well, we talk a lot about Die Hard Dice here. That's because Todd and his wife do a great job giving people good quality dice, good service at a decent price. And one thing I wanted to point out, if you go to dieharddice.com, because they have so many different sets of dice, they've now set up something on their website. If you play a certain class of character, Ranger, Paladin, Cleric, so on and so forth, but not keeping it to a set genre. So like if we're talking Paladin, you're talking, Lancelot or Judge Dredd. For those of you who know who Judge Dredd is and saw the super awesome Carl Urban movie, that movie unfortunately just came out at the wrong time. Didn't get the exposure it really deserved. But Cleric, Van Helsing, as a recommendation, or let's see, what's another one? Barbarian, Riddick. For those of you who are fans of Pitch Black. So they offer a way for you to kind of sift through a lot of the dice that they have based on a class. So if we click into here for Ranger, they've just kind of grouped their dice together based on recommendations, based on colors, based on the look of the dice, by class, which is really kind of cool. And, looking at their metal dice, $32 for a set of metal dice, for a full set of 7 dice for $32. That's really good. A lot of the companies out there. There's one company when I was first starting to look at getting metal dice, it was like $75, $80 for a set of dice. And I'm like, when I've got money to absolutely just set on fire, maybe. And then Die Hard Dice came along and it was like, less than half of that price for their stuff. And their poly sets, like the green and gold swirl here that they have of poly dice, $5 for a set of 7 dice. You can't get ChessX dice for less than $7.99, I think, for a set.
It depends on the sets, but a lot of their sets are generally between $4 and $11.
But for the swirl dice?
For the swirl dice, yeah. Swirl dice are usually around, I think, $7 to $10. Yeah.
So, and they do free shipping in the US. So, and their service, the turnaround for the sets and for the accessories that Anessa and I have managed to lay money down for, you get them in days if you're in the States. So check them out, dieharddice.com. And when you finish out your order, put in the coupon code Adventure Party, all one word, Adventure Party, and you can get 10% off of your total order. So check them out, dieharddice.com. All right. I think we're going to jump into our Kickstarter Spotlight. When last time we met, we spoke to Ryan Krippendorf, the creator of Vampire Hunter, the card game. And we had a good talk with Ryan. I really enjoyed speaking with Ryan. It's the second time he's been on the show, and have enjoyed both times. He was looking to get 8,000 was his goal to get Vampire Hunter, the card game, out the door, and he made it.
Yay!
And it is happening. Yep. Really excited for Ryan. I know that he put his heart and soul into this, and based on when he talked with us a couple of weeks ago, the passion that he had for this project was pretty apparent. So it was good to see him meet his goal and get this happening and get this out there for people to play. So congratulations to you, Ryan. I'm really glad to see that Vampire Hunter, the card game, is going to be in people's hands and in shops.
Yep. His latest announcement was he's expecting it to be all set and ready to go for production, all that stuff, April 25th. And then it's the quite literal slow boat from China.
Yeah, that's, when things are manufactured in China, it's economical, but you got to wait for it to get shipped overseas. And that's 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
Oh, it's at least.
And then it goes into customs, and then it kind of sits there for a little bit. So,
yep.
But the good news is he's got his ducks in a row, and
Yes.
it's pretty much ready to go. So his estimated delivery date was June of this year, and things are looking good as of right now. So, kudos to you, to Ryan, and we want to talk now about another Kickstarter, and it's one that I hopped on board. Or did I get on the first printing? I think it was the first printing. I'm going to share this with folks who are checking us out on YouTube. Screen share.
Dun, dun, dun.
There we go. It is a book, How to Create Your First Board Game. Of course, right then, I've got all sorts of notifications popping up on my screen. Awesome. It's a book, How to Create Your First Board Game. And this is the second print run. I believe I got in on the first printing. And I wanted to really kind of dig into somebody else's perspective of how to create a board game, what kind of recommendations that they have for, you to, create something that you would want to play and you would want people to own. And I have some ideas for a game, but it would, I'm going to need some input from some people to make something like that happen. And so this particular book from Aaron Frias, as of right now, his goal was $1,000. Currently, with 17 days to go, he's at 2,307. So things are looking very good for this. And $5 gets you a PDF version of the book, or for $12 you get a physical copy.
Oh, geez.
And the estimated date is April of 2018. Which is next month.
Yeah.
Within the next 4 to 6 weeks.
He's probably doing, well, he's got to be printing locally. Well, locally as in U.S.
Or it could be you get a code for a company that will just print,
Yeah, that could be too.
Print on demand, essentially. So, But he is a game designer, and he's made some games at bowtiegames.com, is where you can check out some of his stuff. So he's not just pulling this out of his hindquarters. He's actually made some games. And so he's got some insight, and he's willing to share that information with you. So if you've ever thought about creating your own board game and wondering what does it take, and what's the process, and what's the best way to test the game, so on and so forth, this book might be a good direction for you to take and start that. And you too can add your game to the huge renaissance that we're seeing in games. So yeah, that's why I'm recommending this. Again, it is a book called How to Create Your First Board Game on Kickstarter. And like I said, $5 for the PDF, $12 for the physical copy, and you can get on your way to creating your own board game. So that's what I got there. So let's quick talk about where you can, or how you can become a Patreon partner. I mentioned it earlier in the show. If you enjoy Adventure Party or some of the other shows that Galactic Netcasts has, you can go to our support page, which is gncasts.com/support, and you can click on the Patreon link. And there are different levels of reward. There's a $1, $3, and $5. And all of our Patreon supporters, or I guess members, partners, you get a bonus podcast that is produced by a gentleman who has produced a number of shows. And basically, it's a look at cool and interesting apps that other podcasters and other game players like to use. And it's not limited to games. It can be productivity. It can be like I think I talked about Slack, which is not a game at all. But it is a great way to communicate with other folks. And we use Slack actually for Galactic Netcasts. And I do talk about that at the end of the show. So yeah, check it out. You go to gncasts.com/support, and we could even read a message that you would like us to read on our show, if you so desire. That's one of the rewards at that at our Patreon page. So check it out, gncasts.com/support. Now, you, sir, took a little trip.
I did.
You took a little trip to Toy Fair. Let's talk about that. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us, what is Toy Fair?
So Toy Fair in New York is one of the largest trade shows for retailers and buyers for retailers for the toy and game industry. So you will have hundreds and hundreds of vendors there. So like Fantasy Flight Games is there, North Star Games, Games Workshop. You have distributors that are there. There's Hasbro. Well, actually, I don't know if Hasbro was. I forget Hasbro. Mattel, Lego, Melissa and Doug. Tons of smaller companies are there. Some new companies will show up there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to see. This is not open to the general public. This is for people who work in the industry for the most part. The only people from the public that you will see there is some press and stuff like that. Yeah, but you don't really, you like Brad can't go and be like, I'm going to go to Toy Fair. I'm going to buy a weekend pass for Toy Fair. Not going to happen. This is where we buy at our store. We do a lot of our orders at Toy Fair, and I mean, it's everything that we sell pretty much. I mean, puzzles, kids' toys, games, all the stuff in between. Pardon me. You find it all there. It runs 4 days. And it is, those of you who've been to Gen Con, Gen Con is teeny tiny. Like the exhibit hall at Gen Con is teeny tiny compared to Toy Fair. Melissa and Doug alone, just Melissa and Doug. Now, mind you, they have one of the bigger booths, but their booth is probably a good couple thousand square feet for their booth.
Okay.
So the size of a small house is Melissa and Doug's booth. And some of the vendors are very closed off. Like Lego, you can't see Lego if you don't have an appointment with them.
Wow.
Their booth is completely walled off. You can see nothing. You can't get in there unless you have an appointment. And in order to have an appointment, you have to be a retailer. So there's a lot of stuff that, requires you to plan ahead. And I mean, like I said, we order a lot at Toy Fair, and partly is one, we get to see a lot of stuff, and having it on your mind when you place an order is a good idea. Hey, this is cool. We want to make sure we get it. Let's just place an order. Lots of those companies also do specials. It's like the big thing is like, hey, spend $1,000 and you get free freight. Which, when it comes to shipping things like board games, free freight is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we look for too. Is we can get a lot of our extra stuff done, and we can keep our costs down, which means we don't have to raise prices in the store to cover extra things like freight, because freight can really jack up the price of product when you have to pay for it. And we just get to see a lot of cool stuff, and it is like it starts on technically on Saturday morning, and we are going I get up at about 6:30 Saturday morning, so that I can almost always have early appointments. We get in an hour early, and we have appointments with some of our vendors. We always meet with Melissa and Doug if we can first day, because it's awesome to get it done, and they also give us breakfast. But then the exhibit hall is open till 6 p.m. So we are working the floor from 8, 9 in the morning till 6 p.m. And then we go home. We go back to the hotel. We grab dinner, and then we write orders till around midnight. And then we get up the next morning at 6:30 to go back to Toy Fair to spend about 45 minutes eating whatever breakfast we brought with us, which is usually McDonald's or Starbucks. Go back in and stay on the floor again until 6 o'clock. Go have dinner, write orders till midnight. And we do that Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Those are long days.
Yeah, I bet.
Tuesday, we get up again. We were really on our game this year. So Tuesday was just, it was revisiting some of the booths we wanted to revisit, and a couple other little things to get done. And we actually finished early. We usually go till about 4 on Tuesday. That's when it closes. We were done around 1 o'clock this year. So then I just went around and looked at other stuff that I just wanted to look at. Some stuff for the store and one or two things for me, because like McFarlane Toys has a booth there, which we don't carry their stuff, but it's cool to look at. That's also when, for some people, a lot of the press people especially, some of the booths will sell their stuff off. So like McFarlane Toys, you can go buy all their models that they have on display. They'll usually sell them cheaper than normal because it's stuff they don't have to then freight back home. I don't bother with that stuff at all, because I'm not there to pick stuff up. I'm there to see all the stuff. And it's also just great to be able to talk to the actual publishers. And my boss especially has done a lot to cultivate good relations with a lot of the publishers. So when we stop in booths, they know my boss. A lot of them remember those of us who have been to the shows before. They remember us from these conventions. And it's great because, one, it's just kind of cool when someone who makes products that you love knows who you are.
Yeah.
It'd be like going to a book signing and the author saying, "Hey, friend," or going to a movie premiere and having one of the actors say, "Hey, how's it going, Brad?"
Yeah.
That's awesome. And also, they will also, a lot of them will ask you for feedback, because they respect our opinions on things.
Sure.
So they will ask us as retailers what we think about. What do you think about? Well, sometimes it'll be a game. So like sometimes we'll give us sneak peeks of some of their games. Sometimes it's things that are pretty much out but not just released yet. Other times it's things that I can't talk about because it's sometimes it's just not released yet, or it's still in a play testing, so they're or it's not final packaging or not final product. Sometimes it is like USAopoly has a lot of licenses for stuff, so the stuff I see there I can't talk about. I can't say like oh, they're coming out with Wonderbug, the monopoly for Wonderbug, which they're not, but some of the ones they're coming out with, some of the games are coming out with, I can't talk about. But things that like USAopoly, they're the ones who released the Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of the themed monopolies. So your Supernatural Monopoly, your I think your Pokemon monopolies, your Fallout Monopoly, stuff like that. Your themed Munchkin, so like your Nightmare Before Christmas Munchkin, they do all that stuff. So I see stuff that's there that I can't talk about, because I'm not supposed to, and because I want to stay on good terms with these vendors. I follow those rules. And at times it's really hard because you want to say, oh my God, there's this cool stuff coming out that you won't know about for 4 months or 6 months. Part of the curse of my job. But it's also great that, it's as I said, you cultivate these relationships and you get to see these things because they know that, well, yeah, you're not going to blab this stuff because we trust you, because we know you. It's also great too, when you have issues, you can talk to these people directly and say, hey, what about this? What's going on with this thing? Or you had this Target exclusive. Is this ever going to come to us? Or, hey, we carry this thing from you. We had a lot of issues with it. Or simply, okay, you have this type of card holder for, like sits on a table for those people who have trouble holding cards. But what we need is something with wider slots, because most people use a card holder is because they can't physically hold the cards because they might be older, they might have arthritis, whatever. And when you make a card holder, it's great. But when you make it with super narrow slots, someone with bad arthritis can't line the card up into that narrow slot. So you get to tell these companies these things, and sometimes they listen to you. Sometimes they take notes. Some companies take a lot of notes from you. So it's great being able to interact with the publishers and some of the distributors that way. And they're not all super receptive. Some, I mean, even though we are a pretty decent sized, local, game store with our 3-ish locations, we're still, we're not, I mean, there are buyers for, big stores are here too. You have guys who are buying for, probably you have your buyers for Barnes and Noble, your buyers for Targets and your Kohl's department stores. All those guys are there too. So we're a small potato for some of these people. But even for some of those people, they still know we're important, because it's like, yeah, they sell, 100,000 units to say Target. But when you total up all their small accounts, that's another 200,000 they're selling. So it's like, yeah, individually, we might not be huge, but as a group, we're a big part of their business.
Sure.
And we're also the ones who are promoting them more. I mean, a place like Target may buy a lot of your stuff. They just throw it on a shelf and let it do its, and that's it. That's all they do. They don't promote it. If they promote it, it might just simply be, hey, it's in a flyer. But they don't, you can't have anyone talk to you about it. You can't test it out. And they know that people coming to our stores are going to be able to get a lot more interaction with their product. And we will personally pitch some product. So that's a great thing, is when we can do stuff like that and we get recognized for that. It's great too. When companies know that you do a good thing and they tell you, hey, you're doing this awesome thing. As far as some of the cool things I saw that I can actually talk about. Boy. Yeah. So I got to see coming out soon is the new Game of Thrones minis from Cool Mini or Not. I got to do that, and those look really cool. I don't need another minis game, but I've said that for the last 6 minis games, 7, 10 mini games I bought. There's also, they had a really cool one. I'm blanking on the name. I think it was called Dragon Castle. That is, it's like this. It's almost kind of like it's like a twist on like Mahjong, where you're taking these different tiles off this or playing tiles on this castle, and it was super cool looking. I don't think it's going to be a huge seller. I think we'll sell some of it, but it's definitely a game that it's one of those games that is awesome, but it's never going to sell by the box itself, or almost never. It's one that you have to have out. You have to have people touch it. You have to have people interact with it, because otherwise it's just not going to sell. There's a lot of games that are like that. North Star Games has games like that. They did one called last year or 2 years ago called Happy Salmon, which will sell occasionally because of its packaging. It's actually in like a felt, or not felt, but like a fabric fish with a zipper is what the cards are held in. And they have one that they did this year called, I forget what it's called, Chicken something. God, I'm terrible. I'm terrible at this. It's because I left all of my Toy Fair notes at work where I used them. But it's great too because you also get to try a lot of these games out. The guys will run through them with you. And some of these companies, they're small. That's what a lot of people don't realize, is that they, it's not all these companies, are hundreds of people. Some of them are like, hey, there's 4 of us who work for this company. That's it. There's 4 of us.
Sure.
And in those cases, you really do get a lot of special hands-on and face-to-face with them. Like one of my favorite companies to meet with is Endless Games, who do some of my favorite like little party games. They do one that's called Oddly Obvious, and they've done some other great ones. And they're real appreciative of us and the business we do with them. It's great to get. It's one of our appointments we have every year. We always sit down. We go through all their new product. There's always 1 or 2 games that we know for sure. Yeah, we're going to bring that in, and we're going to sell. We're going to sell 30, 40, 50, 100 copies of it. And it's great stuff. There is there's so much amazing stuff to see, and I feel like such a schmuck because I'm blanking on everything. Oh, Blue Orange Games has had some really great ones that were coming out. If you like getting into kids games, I love a lot of the kids games because make gamers early, man. It's great. And they had a couple that came out. There was one called Where's Mr. Wolf, which is like a variation on Memory, where you have this. It's a field, and it's like a pasture. And then outside the pasture is Mr. Wolf. And you have all these tokens with flowers that are face down. And once you flip them over, there's different animals or possibly wolves on them. And there are 4 little barns. And on the top of the barns, there's different, a card you can put on top of each barn that will say what animal has to go in that barn. It might be like, this barn needs a cow and a duck. This one needs 2 ducks. This one needs, a pig and a cow. And on your turn, you pick a tile. And if it's an animal that has to go in a barn, you can put it in the barn. However, if the barn says says cow and a pig, it means 1 cow, 1 pig. So you have to remember also what was put in a barn.
Okay.
If you draw a wolf, Mr. Wolf moves closer to the pasture. And you have to put that wolf token back and try to remember where that wolf is as well. Because you draw enough wolves, Mr. Wolf gets into the pasture and he eats every animal that's left. And then you see how many of the barns you scored properly from having the right animals and the right number of those animals in the barn. And it's cooperative, so you're all playing together, which is great for young kids, is having some of the cooperative games. I think you should have a mix of co-op and competitive for kids. One so that they can learn a little bit about competition, but in a fun way. But also cooperation is a huge thing to be teaching kids. And knowing that, and in that way, you don't have to deal with I beat you, It's the no, we all won together or we all lost together. And then one that I absolutely loved is called Shaky Manor.
Huh.
This one, each player has a little. It's like a box that has rooms in it, doorways between all the rooms, and then you have little like wooden bits and bobs that you put in there. And it could be, so you might play with where there's a ghost and there's a explorer and there's 3 treasure chests and a spider and a snake. And you'll get a challenge where it is you have to get the explorer and all 3 treasure chests in the orange room. And you do that because there's a clear cover over your box, and you have to shake your box and move it around to get those 4, and those 4 things only, be the first one to get them all in your room. So it's just a nifty little kind of manipulative game. And it has some of the best packaging I've ever seen for a game, because there are 2 demos available without opening the box, because they have one of the boxes with the cover on the front showing with a challenge to do, and on the back they have a different one showing with a challenge to do. So it's amazing that you have the demos right there. And I don't have to open it up. I can show people right through the box. People can play with it as much as they want through the box. It's fantastic. Haba Games came out with some great kid ones as well. Haba is a German company that makes some fantastic games. Some of my favorites, like Rhino Hero and Animal Upon Animal. They came out with a great one called Dragon's Breath. And it's these games also that it's teaching kids without kids knowing they're being taught. And this is for younger kids. It's going to teach them things like coordination and like fine motor skills, as well as a little bit of logic. Because in that one, you have these plastic rings that represent ice. And then you stack these rings all up on top of each other, and then you fill it up with gems, these little plastic gems. And you are all baby dragons, and you're trying to get the gems. But however, you aren't strong enough to breathe fire yet. So you need Papa Dragon to breathe fire for you. So when you're the first player, you're going to pick a color of gemstone that you think will fall when you remove the top ring of ice. So you will say, I think the yellow is going to fall, so I'm going to draw yellow. Then it goes to the next player. They're going to draw the color that they think. So they might say blue, and then you might say, I think, well, what's left? I'll go purple. Then that player removes that top ring. Any gems that fall off, so like I picked yellow. If any yellow fall off, I get to take them. I put them in my treasure trove, which is right behind my dragon, which actually feeds back into the box. And then the person next to me takes their color, you take yours. Any of that aren't claimed get pushed into the center hole. And you keep doing this till all the rings are gone. And then you lift the box up to see what the final score is, because everything is contained in the box. So the game actually cleans up after itself as well.
Oh, nice.
So it's great seeing stuff like that. Just because, it's a lot of times you wouldn't know which games to bring in, because there are so many games coming out now. Being able to sit down with these people and have them run you through stuff, it's fantastic. And I mean, this is how I learned some of the stuff with Games Workshop. Is I talked to one of the Games Workshop guys of what do I do to get people in this? Oh, we got this $30 starters. I'm like, what? Of course we're going to carry that, because if I can sell Games Workshop, that can be huge. A lot of people ask for it from time to time, but it's a game that I think is fun, especially with the changes they've made. And you get to see and experience all that, which makes this show, I think, invaluable to anyone who really wants to grow their business as far as being a toy and game store. So yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, there's a whole lot going on, that's for sure. And it's really cool that you get to be able to have that opportunity to see what's coming out, to talk to these creators and vendors, and be able to see what's coming up. But also, when that game does come out, maybe you've had the opportunity to talk to those folks, and you find a better way to market it to people that are coming in the door. And actually being able to have anecdotes of, yeah, I talked to the creator of this game when I was at Toy Fair, and, here's the inside scoop about this. That makes you look like a kind of educated, I guess is kind of the word I'm looking for, but, educated on the games itself, but also that you've got a little bit of inside information. It just kind of reaffirms the fact that they're coming to a store, to somebody who's a professional, as it were, and they're passionate about games, they're knowledgeable about games, and this is the place you should be going. So there's got to be a number of dividends to be able to attend things like that, and that's really cool. I'm sure you enjoy the opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really wish I could have done stuff like that back in my day.
Back in your day.
When you could go to, what was it? Capital City would occasionally have something that was going on at, one of the cons around, back when Capital City distribution was still a thing. And nobody knows what I'm talking about. All right, moving on. I think we should probably wrap things up. What do you say?
Yeah, I suppose we could wrap it up.
All right. If you would like to chat with our hosts and other listeners of this Galactic Network podcast, 24 hours a day, you can go to gncasts.com/signup, and we'll add you to our Slack team. Remember, I talked about Slack earlier. Yes, so you'll be able to have the ability to interact with us in real time. Again, go to gncasts.com/signup. For more on this podcast, including show notes, contact info, and more, you can go to gncasts.com/adventure. If you have a question or comment about anything that you've heard on this Galactic Network podcast, you can email adventure@gncasts.com. You can leave a voicemail message or a text message at the number 805-328-3966. Again, 805-328-3966. Or you can just go to gncasts.com/contact. And there is a form you can fill out, and it just magically shoots it to us. So we do read, listen to, and appreciate all of the feedback that you take the time to give us. Please subscribe to this Galactic Network podcast by going to gncasts.com/subscribe, or you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, or anywhere fine podcasts are offered. And last but certainly not least, I do want to thank Mark Wooldridge of Central Battery Music Works, who is the composer of our theme music. On that note, thank you, Glenn, for joining us once again and giving us some insight into Toy Fair and what it's all about. Hey, if people want to find out more about you, what you do, with movie reviewing or Mist Runner or anything else, how do they find you, Glenn?
You can find me on Facebook with the B-Movie Bunker and Guy in a Bunker Productions. Same thing with Mist Runner the RPG, Demon Eater RPG, Apocalypse Howl the card game. You can also find me at the Spoiler Room podcast with Special Mark Productions. Find me on Astro Radio Z podcast. We just wrapped up our American Ninja project for the year for our franchise of the year. We do a different franchise every year. You can also find me on Twitter at Guy in a Bunker.
Nice. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us at the adventure party here. May your characters never die and your adventures always be epic. Thank you and good night.